Let me tell you about a very expensive mistake I made in my business. It almost cost me the business. I almost went out of business. So, have you ever read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey? It's one of my absolute favorite books. If you haven't read it, highly recommend. One of the principles, one of the 7 habits is to be proactive. So proactive, to delay gratification, to do that which you know that you ought to do before, it has to be done. It's just a basic common principle that if you do things proactively, you're going to be more successful. Invest early, you get compound interest. Clean your room daily and you won't have a giant mess to clean after a month. Exercise. Go to the doctor before you're sick to get a checkup and catch illnesses early. Anyways, so proactive. So I fell in love with this principle of proactivity. And when I started my business, I quit my career, I quit my $100,000 a year job in the fire department, and I said, okay, I'm ready to start my business. I'm going to be really proactive. And I met a business consultant, so like a systems consultant, and he said, oh yeah, I highly recommend you get this software so that you can systemize your business, so that, and here's another book, is, what's the name? The E-Myth Revisited. So this talks about how to systemize your business, build it like a McDonald's, like a franchise, not a franchise business, but a franchise level of detail in your systems. And I thought, okay, that's great. I need to be proactive. Even though I'm a one-man show, I'm still the guy swinging the hammer, going to job sites, I'm doing all the quotes, I'm doing the bookkeeping, I was doing everything. But I said, oh yeah, I should start documenting everything into this software. How much does it cost? Oh, well, it's only, I think it was $5,000 a year. I think it was $3,000 US a year. So 5,000 Canadian dollars. And I said, okay, well, the membership, if I pay monthly, it's 20% more because they give you that discount. I said, okay, well, I'm going to be smart and pay for a year's membership. I didn't have the money, so I borrowed money in order to buy software for $5,000. And yes, it was really good software. Yes, it was just excellent for businesses to, create SOPs and processes and procedures. And then I proceeded, so that was one thing, was spending money, which I shouldn't have borrowed that money. Now I was spending several hours a week documenting systems and processes which I didn't really have. I was just making it up. I downloaded a template and it said, oh, what's your safety standards? And I would just make it up and spend time doing this. And that's not the way to document your processes and your systems. The proper way to do it is, as you're doing it, you record it. So when I build a quote, I just record myself building the quote. That's the process. Because if you go out of your way to start building these processes, these systems, these SOPs, you're probably imagining, or there's a better term for this, but you're like imposing your own wishes. It becomes like a wish list, not reality. Because if you record yourself doing payroll, that's how you actually do payroll. If you just think about it and it just becomes an intellectual exercise, then you're only explaining the ideal of how you would like it to look, not how it actually looks. So the combination of this, spending money I didn't have, and then spending a lot of time every week to build this repository of information, which I didn't have anybody to look at that information. It was too early. Yes, it's good to be proactive and it's good to build this repository, but I was losing money every month because I wasn't closing enough jobs. I should have been spending those 2 hours a week closing sales until I had enough money to buy the software, and then I could spend some time making the SOPs. So I got the order wrong. You need to sell first. That's just the absolute basic. You gotta sell and you have to be profitable. You have to be covering your costs. Don't be borrowing money to buy software. That's ridiculous. So I had to work really, really hard, and it was very, very challenging. Once I was at this point where, like, oh, I'm not making money, I don't have the right people on my team because I haven't been paying attention to them. We went into a slow season, and there was a few different points. I was like, am I gonna shut everything down? Because Like, now I'm pulling money out of my personal account, which I also don't have, in order to keep the business afloat. So I made it through that challenging period and learned this lesson, and that's why I'm sharing it here, because I don't want you to have to learn the same lesson the hard way, because it is hard. Some people have to do that. Some people, they just say, no, I got to do it my way, and their progress is slow, and they make lots of mistakes, and they're very costly mistakes, both in money and time. So whenever you can, take someone else's word for it, learn from their mistakes, don't try and do their mistakes on your own. And hopefully this video will save somebody somewhere $5,000 and whatever time, let's say 100 hours, if not more. Thanks for watching.